And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion on social inclusion and participation of immigration through media literacy. I am Dr. Fatih Muslu. I have the pleasure of moderating today's session. This panel is organized as a part of a project founded by the European Union, aiming to explore the role of media literacy in enhancing social inclusion and participation among immigrant communities. Today, we are joined by two remarkable speakers who bring valuable insights and expertise to this important topic. Our first speaker is Mersiha Smailovic, a dedicated human rights activist and lawyer. Mersiha has been a forefront of advocating for the rights of immigrants and marginalized communities, and we are looking forward to hearing her perspectives on challenges and opportunities within the media literacy for social inclusion. Our second speaker is Neira Kadic Meshkic, CEO at the Center for Cultural Dialogue. Neira has been instrumental in fostering intercultural dialogue and understanding, and her work at the center emphasizes the importance of communication and education in bridging the cultural gaps. I would like to give some brief information about how we conduct the panel before we start. Both speakers will have 15 minutes to share their thoughts, after which we will open the floor for questions, if any, of course, a dynamic discussion. I encourage all attendees to actively participate by sharing their questions in the chat. We hope this session will provide a platform for thoughtful dialogue and collaboration. Without further ado, I would like to invite our first speaker, Mersiha Smailovic, to begin her presentation. Mersiha, the floor is yours. I hope my pronunciation is correct.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's part of the cultural knowing each other is the pronouncing of our names and the letters, which are sometimes difficult to say. I know it's R and S coming together can be a little bit tough. Thank you, Dr. Fatih, for the nice introduction. Thank you for the organizer of this nice panels. I followed the other topics, so it was quite very actual in this time. Even we mentioned the migration, and somehow in our field of work, the following all these wars and genocides happening around us, somehow people forgot about how the impact of the media regarding the migrants and refugees and inclusion. Can I have the option to have slide PowerPoint presentation? Is there an option, or I can?
There is an option, but can you send it to Mr. Ayhan? We can no upload. Problem. First, we have to upload it to the system.
Yeah. Okay. Just to reshare. Then I'm not sure that I have his email. Let me. So I can speak and reshare. We can do this. So regarding the social inclusion, the time that we live now, and it's definitely we find ourselves in a systematic racism, xenophobia, but actually and also in Islamophobia. Each of us have some form of problems that they faced and some form of discrimination that they faced during their just to send the email to Ayhan.
You can send it to me if you like. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I'm finishing. Okay. Okay. Tamam. Sorry. So when we speak about the refugees, the migration, in our experience that we face, I work since 2014 with refugees and migrants, that we can see that with them there is a multi-sector approach because they also face the racism, xenophobia, but actually because of their especially their women, because of their way of functioning, they can also face the Islamophobia, which is many times part of my research that I do the research for the Islamophobia, where I can see that this structural moment coming in their way of functioning. So in the course of our work, we developed more energy to fight against the fake news, and how to approach it, and to to strengthen the hatred toward refugees and migrants. Fortunately, we've been part of the system where also the solidarity has been criminalized. Even if the state has the obligation to build inclusive policy in which there is no place for discrimination and racism, but unfortunately, especially the countries of the Balkan route, I come from Macedonia, we have asylum system that discriminate and exclude refugees from the protection system. We see policies that they are affected by how the media in that time during which there is some change of the law, etc. How the media function and how the media portrayed refugees and migrants, we saw that how the asylum system is developing or not developed, let's say going backward. We see that the politics and the law has been influenced by the fake news, and I believe that they are not allowing even one of the main human rights of any person, the right to flee, the right to move, the right to freedom, to seek asylum, social inclusion. This has been put in another form of systematic racism. So we, after 2014, 15, and until now, we see how the systematic racism looks like. It looks like a country, looks like a system of asylum that cannot go further, we cannot speak now in the Balkans about integration, about social inclusion. We only speak about migration, lowering the number of irregular migrants. So definitely it's a huge form of xenophobia, especially fueled by the media. We live in the world when there is not only one form of media, they're not only television or news. We have so much social media impact where there is no any form of way how to make, you don't have any, so we can go further with the presentation. So we cannot see, we cannot move further with the inclusion. So in our work, we definitely face in this very famous word of Malcolm X, I'm not a racist, I'm against every form of racism and segregation, every form of discrimination. I believe in human beings and that all human beings should be respected as such, regardless of their color. So this is also part of the Declaration of Human Rights, European Declaration, UN Declaration, that all form of human rights begins with this famous quote, or they are moving through these quotes. But unfortunately, in reality, we see that it's not happening. So we can go further with the when we speak about refugees, migrants, inclusion, we also face on the other scale, it's that everything happens with the bias, then we have the prejudice, discrimination, and then active violence. Preventing refugees, migrants, and also people of any other nation that are living in our country from their human rights, we can also feel that that's some form of violence. Depriving somebody from his rights is a form of violence. We don't speak about physical violence, but actually we were facing that during our work when we were speaking about social inclusion. We managed to put the refugee kids in school, but we also face a very hardship from the parents who didn't want their kids to learn. Just a short brief for your participants here. Macedonia is a very multicultural country. We have 2 official languages, Macedonian and Albanian. We are more than 8 nations who are born, raised, and we feel Macedonia as our country. So we live in a multicultural society. We live in a very dynamic society. So for us, foreigners, we are different religion, nation, but unfortunately, with the refugees crisis, we see the form of racism even among our society, coming people, refugees from different colors, background. We see Islamophobia, but we also see discrimination coming from abroad. So we can go further. So yeah, this is the pyramid of hate. We speak very openly about the hate speech, fake news. We always call the media to be very, we are calling up on the media to take care of how they say things, especially on the social media when they are allowed thousands of comments to go in any news. So it doesn't happen by night. the genocide didn't happen by night. It doesn't happen. We in the Balkans know that. Now we see this in the last genocide that is happening, that have all the levels of genocide now happening in Gaza. So definitely this pyramid of hate, it's like a basic things that we learn when we teach about hate speech, freedom of speech, discrimination. So it's we have to take very in concern. So we can go further. There is a very nice moment when I want to explain. This is from our country, but when we speak about how the media, politicians create policy, create violation of human rights. In 2007, we had a local election. We were part of the Balkan route. Millions of refugees, 2015 and beginning of 2016, enter and exit our country. Very few remain. We can count them in one hand. But when in 2017, that time position organized a total scheme of hate speech and fake news, using all the sources that they had, since they were a governmental party. They had all the resources in their hands. So everything happened in the assembly when at that time the prime minister said that refugees and migrants will come in Macedonia. There are thousands of them in the borders with Greece, and didn't finish like that. Then they start on the social media. They form a group calling Awakening, and didn't finish with the Facebook group. It's moved further. They start collecting real signatures against refugees and migrants to organize referendum. So it was 2017 when 2 million of refugees and migrants passed and nobody remained in our country. And real people going on the streets signing that they don't want refugees and migrants in their country. And then the referendum was scheduled. It had happened, but thank God we have some laws and didn't pass the final body. So we can go to the next slide. So they were putting the people, you woke up in the morning and see in your car these pictures. So the next slide, it's a translation of this platform saying, we don't want refugees in our country. They will take our labor. People will lose the job. Typical. It was typical scheme of hate speech used by politicians. They misuse the media. And also this campaign formed our policy that remains even today. We have policy of zero asylum seekers. We don't have asylum seekers approved. We don't have refugee status. Even we have people who want to stay in Macedonia, few of them. But this campaign that follow all this scheme of hate speech, that use the media, nobody didn't care about the truth. Nobody care about the real issue. We didn't have approach to the media to say, come on, people, we have zero people who wants to stay. So on the next slide, we can see how they use Facebook. They enter so it was clear Islamophobia, because they use the mosque. Like I mentioned, half of the population in Macedonia are Muslims. So you can see mosques everywhere. We were part of the Ottoman Empire, but still they misused all these moments about xenophobia, racism, Islamophobia, all the fears that can happen in any person. They use this moment. So this case, even the time moves very fast, even it's before 8 years, but still our asylum system is lacking of showing any support or any protection of the refugees. So we can go to the next slide. So yeah, this was the part of, like, we have a milk with this traditional woman who is where. So they say, if you accept refugees and migrants, you will have this women as with burqa or school, our school. And all these were not fake Facebook pages. It was part of our government, our political party that was part of the government. And now again, they won the last election. So again, they are on power. So it's really frightening that in these 8 years of this limbo, that we couldn't say to the people, look, it was really fake news. We don't have millions of people coming here. Nobody didn't change anything. So nobody cares about the truth. Nobody cares about real facts. So we cannot speak about inclusion when people believe so easily that million people will come in our country, will steal our jobs, will change the construction of our society. Even it's multicultural. So what can you change? So on the next slide, we see that all this fear, all this phobia that are fueling by the media, by the politicians, are making this this fear going in the dehumanization. So what you can see, it's a border between us and Greece. It's a double reservoir where this asylum is in between. It cannot move, because the media use and the politician use a very famous trend of dehumanization, that you don't put refugees as a people, that you don't treat them as a humans. You call them migrants who come to take your you don't belong here. So overall, this widely accepted that dehumanization results in othering that can justify lesser treatment over the others. The individuals are less worthy of help, or that they somehow they deserve these circumstances that they are finding in. Also, the politician goes with this and put these rights in closed borders. The asylum is you put the equal mark to secularization. So all these human rights are put on this fence of secularization. So everything goes in this manner. So definitely the discrimination that we can see. So we can go on the next slide. That all this discrimination is ensuring that they have the less treatment. They don't deserve the equal treatment and the respect of human dignity. But we have to protest. We have to call up the government about this weakness. That in the same system that put the weakness of asylum and don't allow to face the social inclusion, and we don't speak at all about the social inclusion, we can see a different form of secularization. We can go to the next slide, because what was happening in Macedonia didn't affect only in Macedonia. We can see in the Germany that also the attacks happen on refugees and migrants. On the next slide, we can see the protests that are happening, where people loudly are speaking about refugees and migrants. So the politics didn't start, it's not shaping only Macedonian future when we speak about human rights, also it's shaping the European future. When we see, and people many times say it's a refugees and migrants, but if we allow the system to discriminate and to put one human rights by side, definitely the next group will come on the level. So we can see that if we don't speak about the weaknesses of our system, if we don't speak about the most vulnerable in our society, who are the most unseen, that's the refugees and migrants, then the next group will come, and that are Muslims or other nation, other people who are living in a country. The next slide. We can go. So why it's important that we have to speak and stand for the justice and the human rights. If we not do this now, when we were going to do? Because if we face injustice in any place, then the injustice will be happening everywhere around us, like I mentioned, and several times when we see that is happening in the world now. Thank you for your. I know I speak very fast. I try to say anything, but I will remain something for the questions. I'm very looking forward for discussion with Neira. We are many times together in this kind of topics. I hopefully believe that one time we will have some topic very more positive, but I hope that we will encourage, especially the young generation, the students among us, to be fearless, to speak about fences, borders, human rights violation, discrimination. This is very common in our everyday life, to encourage each other to speak, to be more vocal, to be more proud of what we are, so that we will prevent injustice in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ismailovic, for that insightful presentation. I'm sorry, your name pronunciation gave me a little bit headache. That's why.
Social inclusion. It shouldn't be headache. It just forces us to be more.
Okay. Your perspective on very enlightening and has given a lot of to think about. When you make your presentation, that the question that came to my mind, in elite level, in state level, in elite level, we see deliberate act for hate speeches, xenophobia, these kind of things. But in daily life, people easily employ hate speech or xenophobic remarks. Actually, without, we can say that they are unaware. Actually, what do you think about it? I mean, what would be the mechanism to inform people that you are employing, you are using a hate speech or xenophobic remarks? What will be the mechanism?
In the Balkan, it's very common. We say jokes who are full with racist words or very unpleasant to hear. And somehow these jokes are making a biases in ourselves. You know, this nation are dirty, this nation are liars, this nation are stupid. Even it's a joke that everybody laughs, especially in ourselves. It makes you feel it's a part of their culture. So definitely what we have to do as a postulate, you don't want to do the others that you don't want to do for yourself, or you don't have the opinion of the others that you want to have this opinion for ourselves. It's a basic way of treating every person equally. I want to be treated, he wants to be treated the same way like us. I want to say about this person the same that I want somebody to say in front of me. This is the plastic version. We don't enter many in the legal words. This is the plastic version that you can teach for the small kids, but unfortunately we do it with the elderly one, that we tell them the way that you will speak with about someone, speak like you speak for yourself.
So you
And
mean a
yeah.
grassroots approach or top-down approach to
Yeah,
combat?
it's a grassroots approach. Everything happens from the bottom. It's a grassroots approach. You cannot change. It's very easy to say to the people, you are xenophobic, you hate people, you are racist, you are etc. We will be same like them, putting labels on people. We are trying to explain that the way they are thinking, the way they are writing, it's not okay. Especially in Macedonia, what are we using? It's very, very good. Is that also we are a nation of migration. We are moving. We have 500,000 people. We have in my family, I have people worldwide. And when I go there and I speak them about my refugees and migrants, and they say they are, we have. I said, no, we are all migrants. So the reason of migration is different, but we all move from the same view. So it's the perspective of finding themselves different than you. But if you go to the grassroots, we're all humans, equal, with the same rights that we to all belong.
So it's a very hard job to accomplish, but we will do our best, right?
Yeah.
Thank you
We
very
are
much.
women, we are strong, we can do that.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor, Neira Meskic. As I said before, you have 15 minutes. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So I know my name, especially the surname, like Kadic Meshkic, sounds really like difficult to pronounce it. Because, yeah, for all people who are not actually originally from Balkans, it's hard to pronounce it. Yeah, but yeah, as you said, my name is Neira Kadic Meshkic, and I'm based in Zagreb, the capital of Croatia. I don't know how much you are well known with the context of Croatia and migrations or refugees. But I am, since I work in Center for Culture Dialogue, I run this organization since 2015. So actually from the start of this, I don't like to say it migration crisis, because by the numbers, it wasn't a crisis for the Europe and European Union. It's more about migration wave, let's say it like that. So we were officially registered at that time because we saw a huge need to support the process of building and strengthening intercultural societies, not only in Croatia, but also in the region and in other EU countries. And somehow our mantra was like, at the time of the increased radicalism, where hate speech is on the rise, and we see the indicators of extremism in modern Europe, work and efforts in using dialogue to revise the tide, to heal, to support human rights are more important than ever before. This was like our leading point in forming and establishing formally the Center for Culture Dialogue. We are established as a non-profit and non-governmental organization. that builds more inclusive and intercultural societies by strengthening and promoting interreligious and intercultural dialogue in Croatia, but also wider in region and Europe. We do this through our direct work in Croatia, but also through we are the members of different networks that are focused on inclusion of migrants and refugees into European societies. But beside the work of Center for Culture Dialogue, I also work a lot with minority communities, national ones, religious ones, through the work for one international organization. The name of the organization is Minority Right Group Europe. They are based in Budapest, in Hungary. And also, as Merciha also mentioned, I work on creating European Islamophobic reports for Croatia in last maybe 5 years or something like that. So I can also talk about this topic from the perspective of Islamophobia researcher. Regarding to the topic of digital migration and virtual communities, I would like to mention 2 projects that we were implementing in Center for Culture Dialogue that are connected very much to this topic. And actually, I will talk from the experience of these 2 projects in the field. First project is called New Neighbors, inclusion of people who have been granted international protection, means asylum and subsidiary protection in a Croatian society. And this was a project that we implemented together with the Croatian government. So the project was directly supported through the Ministry of Interior. And in this project, we worked, one of our goals actually was to reshaping the narratives on migration, actually on negative perception about refugees in Croatian society that was created through actually media narratives. The focus of our work in this project was actually that instead of giving room for derogatory discourse and hate speech, how to explore the ways of fostering tolerance and understanding, even though the tolerance is not my favorite word, because we shouldn't tolerate others. We should accept them and understand them and live together, not tolerate.
That was what I was going to ask. Instead of tolerance, what would be the correct word?
I don't like the tolerance word, because this means that someone is in this superior power and it tolerates the others who are actually minority, right? Majority is tolerating minority usually. So it's more like let's try to understand each other and live actually together in harmony and accept each other differences and live that diversity. In this project, we had a different workshops with media representatives. The goal actually of this workshop was actually to connect media representatives and journalists who are actually writing about topics of migration and refugees to real refugees and migrants. Because usually as an NGO, we were like the bridge between the media and the refugee population, connecting them when, for example, media wants to create an article or some news or report or even the television report about refugees or migrants. Then they call us to give them few contacts so they can tell the stories about the migrants. And sometimes these stories didn't, in the end, sound very well. Or actually, the refugees weren't really agreeing with these stories. For example, because media usually use this story about empathy, and the hard lives that refugees are having and things like that. And not all the refugees want to be represented in this way. Especially, we have a situation where media representatives or journalists don't really know the exact terminology or the literacy that is related to the migrations. So they mix the terms of migration, migrant, refugee, asylum seeker, asylum, and things like that. And I also have my personal experience in that. I was invited to give a statement to one local television, and the question was about the refugees. And I spoke about the rights that they have and challenges that they have in Croatian society. But in the end, when I saw the whole report, it was about actually the people who have granted work permits in Croatia, not the international protection. And you know, the rights between these two different groups by their status are different. It's not like the people, someone who has asylum in Croatia, the rights of that person are much different from the rights that have someone who came here for the work permit. So it also shows how the media representatives are not really well introduced to these topics, or they don't know the terminology, etc., etc. Okay, they have their reasons. I also, because by the research we did, deeper in this issue, why this is happening in media. And there are a couple of reasons, but still this should be the journalists should be much more professional in this sense. And that was actually the goal of this workshops that we held in this project. And also in these workshops, what we did is that we invited two refugees, so two persons who have status of refugees in Croatia, and they actually shared their experience with media, to the media representatives. There was one very interesting workshop where we actually put that refugee, we did a simulation of one interview. We had a journalist and the refugee, and journalist was asking questions, and if that question was in some kind of sense of inappropriate or offensive for the refugee, then the refugee was raising hands. And like 90% of the questions were the questions where the refugee was raising his hand. And I think that workshops like this are really could be considered as a recommendation in creating more professionalism in media reporting about the topics of migrations and refugees. And also one other project that we are implementing at the moment is a project, we call it Migration Mediator. That could be considered as migration media and migration mediator. And we are doing it together with University of Krakow from Poland. So this is the project that's being simultaneously implemented in Croatia and in Poland, and we will compare the results of them. But the point is actually to do the quantitative and qualitative research, how the media reports are creating narratives among youth in these two countries regarding to migrations and refugees. So we are in the process of creating these reports, so I cannot tell a lot in advance. And the reason for that, that's the reason why I will mention actually the other report that was done by the State Office for Human Rights and Rights of National Minorities of Republic of Croatia. This State Office for Human Rights actually in 2023 they created a report on how the refugees were reported in media content in Croatia, and there was a number of challenges of media access to marginalized communities, and also access of members of marginalized communities, including refugees, to media. For example, I will mention a couple of them. Refugees and also the members of marginalized communities are not represented enough, so they don't have enough of time, for example, in TV shows, but also they are not represented enough in traditional but also non-traditional media. Marginalized communities don't understand always the language or the context of Croatian mass media, and because of that they miss a lot of information. They miss they also are not very much introduced to their rights and their obligations. They don't know what's happening in the local community. They don't know how to be more involved in local communities and things like that. Also, the voice of marginalized community is not heard. It's more like about the others, especially NGOs, are talking about the migrants and their issues and their needs, but not actually giving a lot of space to migrants themselves to talk about the problem, the issues, the good and the bad, the positive and the negative things about living in Croatia. And also media, all media have its own political and ideology policies. Sometimes we were witnessing the way how the fear was spread in the local communities. Also something that Mersiha mentioned, security narrative is really, really present in media. It's more, when we are talking about migrations, migrants and refugees, it's always about forcing this security narrative, and we are forcing more like to mention like this growth initiative, because we need them for for different economical reasons. Why don't we use this opportunity also? And the journalists are not presenting their stories objectively. They usually, in stories, in the reports that they create, they put their prejudice and stereotypes that they have about these different communities, about religious communities, about the national communities, and things like that. So a number of these challenges is presented in at the moment in traditional and non-traditional media. And when you asked me to talk about the digital migration, then I was like, oh my God, digital migration is like a genius way how the marginalized communities can afford this unique opportunity to access to the media space and talk about themselves. And I was like thinking about that idea that in Croatia we don't have so much broadcasts, TV shows, or even a Facebook page or platforms in media that are being run by refugees or different minority communities themselves. But when I was thinking about it, it was also, there is also another challenge. When if they have it, I guess they will usually be listened to the members of their community. So I still think that we should use the advantage of digital migration, but also we should be very much aware of the need that we need to invest in traditional and non-traditional media way, how we now spread the news and news about refugees and migration processes in Europe. And some of these recommendations could be these workshops that I already mentioned, education of journalists, especially the formal education at universities, connecting journalists and media representatives more with the migrants in maybe not so formal or informal events, where actually they will meet them properly before they create the stories about them. There's only way how we can be sure that they are presented in a right way. I know that I talk too much. Okay.
No, it's okay. It's really insightful. I really enjoyed both, and your presentation. I really enjoyed, to be honest. But while listening to your presentation, I kept telling myself, I know little about Balkans, Macedonia, Croatia, because Neira, you said that if you are familiar with the Croatia or not, at the beginning you said something like that, similar to that sentence. I asked myself, yes, I know little about Croatia. What is the immigration or refugees, whatever. I mean, I'm familiar with the Macedonia because of multicultural, multi-ethnic structure, a little bit familiar, but Croatia is somewhere beyond my comprehension, actually. I would like to ask, I listened to your, because you said, you pinpointed problems accurately. I mean, there is a problem over there. Especially, I like when you say that there is a security narrative which overrides all other narratives. This is very important. I would like to ask both of you, are you optimistic for the future? This is very important, because if I see people enthusiastic and optimistic about the future, I think there would be some hope for grassroots approach, grassroots movements, because hope is the key or the starting point, I think, for me, for this kind of combat. What do you think? Are you optimistic for the future? You can answer both.
Like, Croatia is, because you don't know the context, Croatia is a very much homogeneous society because it's mostly Catholic and it's mostly Croat country. You know, okay, we have different national and religious minorities. They have their rights. Everything is regulated by the law and etc. etc. But Croatia is facing the changes, big changes, because we at the moment we have a lot of people who in the last 2 years get the work permits, and these are people who are culturally very different from Croats, for example. And it's not like, I think that we need to be optimistic because this is the future. You know, it's coming, and it's not coming, it's there. And now we should just have the models how to create this living together in harmony. You know, the models how to put people who are different by different identities in interaction, and how to actually let them meet each other. And also, we have also these narratives about they will take our jobs, they are doing these jobs for less money and things like. We also have this, and it's really. And I think, since I'm coming from the field of dialogue, and I think it's really important to talk about it. We shouldn't ignore it. We should have facts and say, okay, you are saying this. Let me tell you, is it a fact or is it actually a taboo, and things like that. But I think that we are here to reshape the narratives. That's the reason why I work in the NGO sector, and I'm very much optimistic that we can do it. It will last, of course. It will last for for a long period. But at the moment, in Croatia, I see potential for really strengthening in the cultural Croatian society.
That's exactly. What about you, Mersiha? Yani, what do you think?
I'm more realistic and a fighter than optimistic. In reality, it's very hard, especially in the Balkans, and reality is very hard in the world. But what is optimistic in our fight for refugees and migrants, and that we use as a narrative, is how Macedonia welcomed the refugees from Ukraine. So it was very positive experience for us, saying to our governments, see, you know how to do it, and you know when to do it. So just follow this approach to another level. So we were very happy that Macedonia changed the law and regulation regarding for them to feel more welcomed in our country and education. So this makes me, I want to see this positive as a narrative that also Europe shows that they can show solidarity, and they know how to show it. I don't use this narrative why you use for them, not for the others. Just as like Nera said, part of the NGO, we say to the government, wow, good experience. But what we see when we speak about this narrative, it's definitely we cannot stay silent when we see that now different way how the media approach to the war in Gaza, when we see how the protests happening around the world. This is optimistic when we see how the world stands for rights, stands for human rights, stands for the true, and they're asking for the true. That's the optimistic part of me. Realistic is that it goes very hard. We fight with the narratives, and we fight with the media who has so much power, million and million followers, million euros, and you just have your platform and you try to be to use your voice. And like Neira mentioned, what is changing in positive, we see how this media narrative change when we have people from Gaza 24 hours showing their reality. They are now present and they are using, they speak English, they speak all the world. So you cannot change the way, the approach. We see the TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or X. They cannot fight the narrative of people who are aware of their rights, people who are aware that something bad is happening in the world. We see the students uprising worldwide. So this is realistic way of thinking, and means that we still have to be fighting for our beliefs.
No, thank you very much. I mean, by being optimistic, of course. I mean, I'm not, how to say, I'm not neglecting being realistic. I know the problem is out there. I mean, we need to deal with, we need to handle. But unfortunately, this security, as you said before, security narratives, it's too overriding and too dominant about regarding other topics. That's why we need to first, I think, combat against the security narratives. I don't know if we can do it, but I still prefer to be optimistic, actually. Okay, realistically, it's really hard, difficult, maybe almost impossible, but I would like to be optimistic. That's why I use this word. I prefer to be optimistic. As we come to the end of this insightful and panel discussion on enhancing social inclusion and participation of immigrants through media literacy, I would like to thank each speaker for their time, expertise, and thought-provoking presentation. That's really, I mean it, thought-provoking presentations, because there are some points which I never thought of before, but I will think about them after a while, of course. Your contributions have greatly enriched our understanding of challenges and opportunities in the field. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me to have this panel with you. Thank you very much. I hope we can meet again in some future organizations. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much for having us.